Guys, let me talk to y'all first. We're going to do a little different today. Somebody may have mentioned it, if not.
Be placed into conference.
Except they just went off.
The leader has muted your line. To unmute your line, press #6.
But I'll say, all right. So looking at the radar and satellite imagery of this system, it's looking very disorganized near the middle Texas coast right now, and we're expecting very little movement on it over the next 24 hours before it starts a drift up the Texas coast towards our region Wednesday and Thursday. However, it's not going to be a tropical storm when it's doing that. It will be a tropical depression, so it'll be weaker. For our region, we're looking at wind gusts of 20 to 45 miles an hour, with the highest wind gusts along and south of the I-10 corridor of southeast Texas and southern Louisiana. Rain totals going to be varying depending on where the rain band's set up. Some places we'll see an inch or two, and other places we can see quite a bit more. Flash flooding will be possible where the rain bands do set up. Surge of 1 to 3 feet is still expected during high tides, tonight through Thursday, and there's still a small tornado threat. All right, so here's the latest forecast track for beta, and you can see the X marks the spot. It's at 28.2 north, 96.1 west. The pressure has been getting higher, 999, which means it's getting weaker. The sustained winds have lowered from 50 miles an hour. Now they're down to 45. And it's getting further away from all of our places that I'm monitoring it for, Port Arthur, Cameron, Abbeville, New Iberia, and Morgan City there. Like I said, on the forecast track, you can see it basically sits there for 24 hours, not moving very much, in and around the Matagorda Bay region before it starts to move up the coast Tuesday night into Wednesday. By Wednesday, they have it somewhere in the Houston, Galveston region, and then by Wednesday night up to Cameron, by Thursday afternoon up there, getting ready to go into Mississippi. Here's what it looks like on satellite this afternoon. There's really just one little blob of convection, or the red blob that you're looking at there off the coast of Matagorda Bay, where the rain band is there. There's a rain band up in the Houston-Galveston region, but it's more yellowish than it is reddish, so it's not producing major flash flooding or anything like that. And there's a large band of rain over here off the southeast Louisiana coast, but it's out over the Gulf and it's not over land. In our region, you can see just white, indicating just the cloudiness that we have across much of our area. And here's what the radar looks like. You can see the rain band there over in the Houston region. The rain band that we had in our area earlier this morning is basically dissipated. And so we'll see. We are expecting additional rain bands to form tonight. As to who exactly is going to get it, we'll have to wait and see. These are the kind of things that, unfortunately, you can't really predict very far in advance. These are the highest wind gusts that we saw today. The highest number on land in our region was 45 miles an hour in Cameron. Otherwise, it was in the 30s across the I-10 corridor of southeast Texas and southwest Louisiana. 33 in Port Arthur, 32 in Lake Charles, 33 in Jennings. A little bit lower over to our east, 26 near Lafayette, 31 down in Iberia, and 26 near Morgan City. And then further north, Jasper was at 20, Fort Polk at 20, Alexandria between 21 and 22. So similar winds for tomorrow. Higher wind gusts closer to the coast and less inland. So here's what the tide situation looks like. This is a graph that shows what's happened in the past, indicated by the red line, and then the forecast by the black line to the right side there. And for Sabine Pass, tides are running between 2 and 3 above normal. That's going to continue during our high tide that's coming in tonight. And then the high tide tonight lingers. It's one of those things where it'll go on from about 6, 7 o'clock this evening all the way through the overnight hours before it starts to drop off again around 6 in the morning. And then we have a low tide tomorrow during the morning hours and early afternoon before it comes back up. But you do see that the trend of the high tide is starting to go down a little bit from one day to the next. You can see for Wednesday, rather than being up close to a 2.5 or 2 3/4, it's down to maybe a 2 1/4, and then less on Thursday and less on Friday, down to maybe 2 feet. So we are looking at a general trend of it going down as Sabine Pass along the immediate coastal area. A little bit inland here, this is that Rainbow Bridge forecast model. And you can see that we're actually keeping it fairly steady over the next several days. For inland locations, even if you're just 10, 20 miles inland, a lot of times the water is going to be held in place, especially if the wind shift to a southerly component, which is what we're expecting at some point with this system here. So you can see they kind of hold it near the 2 foot, maybe 2.2 feet above normal for high tide purposes there at Rainbow Bridge. So the usual spots that we have issues with there over in Orange County, besides the Bird City region, is over there in down sections of downtown Orange. Further to the east at Calcasieu Pass, the tides are going to be 2 to 3 feet above normal again tonight and the Tuesday before staying at Sabine Pass. It kind of gradually drops off. It'll be under 2 feet, we think, by either Wednesday afternoon or Thursday. And once again, inland in Lake Charles, similar to the situation over there at Rainbow Bridge, you can see that the forecast here actually goes higher than what we're seeing right now. So we're looking at the tide being by up to 2 feet above normal tomorrow, and then staying a little bit higher than that even during high tides for the remainder of the week. So we'll have a little bit of tidal issues here in Lake Charles region as well. Down at Freshwater Canal, even though we don't have a reporting gauge down there, we do have Corps of Engineer gauges nearby. So the forecast that they're going with, they have it around 2 feet above normal, and it will go a little bit higher than that. Because we're a little bit further to the east of the system, this is going to be the area where the winds are going to shift to more of an onshore component later this week. So southeasterly flow will actually cause the tides to go up over in Vermilion Parish. So you can see we're going 2 to 3 feet over in Vermilion Parish for the remainder of the week. And then finally over at Amaretta Pass in St. Mary Parish, the tides will be basically holding steady, running 1 to 2 feet above normal through the remainder of this week. The rainfall forecast got tweaked a little bit. The numbers are 2 to 5 inches for southeast Texas, 2 to 5 in southwest Louisiana, and a little bit higher maybe in south central Louisiana, 2 to 6 inches, while quite a bit less in central Louisiana. They have it down to 1 to 2 inches of rain. In terms of the tweaking of the flash flood areas for the next several days, tonight the risk was not changed, still just showing the coastal areas of southeast Texas and southern Louisiana. And this will all be dependent on wherever the rain band develops again later tonight. On Tuesday, they kind of focused two areas for the moderate risk, one over near the Houston-Galveston region, the other one over in south central Louisiana and the southeast Louisiana. That's the red or moderate risk. The slight risk is across the remainder of southeast Texas and southwest Louisiana. And then we have the marginal risk further inland than that. On Wednesday, pretty much most of our area now is in a slight risk, the 10% yellow shade that we're looking at there. But it does extend all the way into southeast Texas as well. The tornado threat did not get changed. The threat for the next couple of days showing portions of southeast Texas and southern Louisiana having a risk. If the rain bands do move into these areas, there could be a tornado potential associated with it, but it's not very large. This is a marginal risk. This is the low-end risk. We're talking about a 5% risk for tornadoes. So in terms of our confidence level for the various forecast parameters, the wind aspects of it we feel very confident about, the 20 to 40, maybe 45 miles an hour for the highest at the coast. Rainfall is still low just because we don't know where the rain bands are going to be or how strong they'll be. So we're saying 1 to 2, some places 3 or 4 or even 5. But reality is we could have a big gust here and it could be a lot less than this, or we could get some rain bands moving in and we could get higher numbers. So it's still just very uncertain. So the confidence level is still low at 3 out of 10. Storm surge has been holding very steady for the last couple of days, so we're still feeling good about that. 9 out of 10 on the surge, running 1 to 3 feet above normal. And the tornado threat is kind of a toss-up. If we get any, it's going to be very isolated threat. We don't expect widespread tornado outbreak associated with this system. So our brief will be tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Okay, I think we're still a go. For those watching, this is a different beginning to our normal briefing. Today we wanted to have the National Weather Service give us their weather update and allow everybody to see it because Tropical Storm Beta has been active in the Gulf. And of course, if for those watching, you can tell the news is good, much better for our area. I think the main threat is still rain here and later in the week as this storm moves easterly, but I think if I heard it right, it's expected to be a tropical depression. So with our situation here, though, everything we have to watch closely, and we're still pretty vulnerable, so keep an eye out, but the news is much better. But to start off, we still want to call this the Hurricane Laura recovery briefings, even though we've had another storm in the Gulf. I'm Brian Beam, Calcasieu Parish Administrator. We'll hear from a lot of our regulars today, but there's always news, and we appreciate everybody tuning in. We will hear first from Dick Grimion, who will cover some of the recovery efforts, and we had
the forecast does look somewhat better than it has been looking. I think the thing we should be concerned about is Roger pointed out that they have a rather low confidence level in the rain forecast, and that's what, with a tropical depression, are tried 2 to 4 feet. Does anyone have any questions on the weather forecast before we move on, or its impact? If it moves through and if it only rains 2 to 4 inches and all of that, we'll be in good shape. But we do have to watch out for those feeder bands to make sure that we don't get areas that are inundated. A couple of things I want to emphasize. FEMA will emphasize this when they get up, but I want to remind everyone we still have reports of quite a significant number of people probably have not signed up for FEMA yet, and we really need them to get signed up so we can get them into the system. It affects other aid as well as FEMA, like maybe Red Cross and some other agencies, so we really need to get that word out. If you know someone who has not signed up or is having difficulty, they do have a good helpline that you can call them on the phone and they can walk you through it. One note about our pod sites and our transportation, where we're bringing people away from the area to evacuate. Those are dependent on the weather. If we get winds over 30 miles an hour, we have to discontinue both of those operations. So far, we're in good shape. The National Guard has agreed to stick with that mission until it becomes unsafe to do it. But I just wanted to warn everyone, we may need to suspend those operations on a, quick notice basis. We had a visitor, as Brian said, we had a visitor in the area today. FEMA Administrator Pete Gaynor came down to look at the progress. He was here with the president about a couple of days after the hurricane passed through, and he came back today really just on a fact-finding tour. We were able to speak with him, I along with Brian and Dane. We're able to speak to him, and we emphasized to him the importance of the housing mission, both short-term, medium-term, and long-term. And the administrator acknowledged that he knows that that's our top issue. He's going to bring that back to Washington with him, and I'm sure Jerry or one of the others might want to comment on this as well. He also asked, and it's a little early for this, but it's something we should all be thinking about. He also asked us to consider mitigation measures when we're doing our rebuilding. We do live in a hurricane-prone area. This year has been, quite a headache. But if we were to prepare all of our buildings to withstand some of these hurricanes, it would be better. So as we build back, we just ask to makes our community more resilient and a safer place to live. And I'll take any questions.
Did he indicate any willingness on the part of FEMA to, help people who do have insurance as far as mitigation? Because I don't know at this point, whether insurance companies, I'm guessing that when you make a claim, they just, probably want to put you back where you were as opposed to build it better and stronger necessarily.
Right. So you're talking about on an individual person basis. I have to let Jerry address that when he comes up. If you could ask it again, Teresa, when Jerry comes up. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dick. One of the examples on that, Teresa, is it's a little longer term, but they have these, what they call HMGP grants, where either some or all of the costs for someone to elevate a home or have a home moved can be provided through federal assistance. We've gotten a lot of those over the years and done a lot of that. That takes longer, though, so it's less of a short-term thing, and as Dick pointed out, I think Jerry Stoller can address that. On an example, though, for public facilities, I'll give you one. We just met today with our facility director. We had a lot of parish buildings damaged. Some after Rita, where we have flat roofs, where we upgraded the roof to withstand a certain miles per hour wind. And I think we'd gone up to 120 for Rita. Well, that got damaged. That was a mitigation effort. So when we rebuild, we're looking strongly at upping that even more. Costs a little more now, but it saves you a lot later, so you don't have to do it. So mitigation is not a one-time thing. And unless they invent a Category 6, I think we got hit by a pretty tough one, but still, the point is very good, and I appreciate the administrator bringing that up today. Next, we want to hear from our Sheriff, Tony Mancuso, who has an announcement regarding the curfew.
Thank you, Brian. I know that's been on everybody. I get a lot of questions about curfew. Met with the chiefs last week. I think I told you in one of our briefings that we were going to reevaluate today. We did that, and we are going to change. We asked the police jury to do a new order, and we're going to make the curfew starting today from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So that should give people a little better opportunity, some businesses to stay open a little longer, our Steins and Lowe's and things like that. I know that sometimes people get off work and it's very hard to go to some of these places, including myself. When I would get off sometimes it was just too late. Everything was closed and I was unable to get things. So this should help out. We're in a much better place things just continue to progress and put us in a better place. So we asked the police jury to do that today. Tony Gilry, the police jury president, signed that into effect. So it is in effect now from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And that's till further notice. We didn't put an end date on it. I suspect probably for the next 30 days, if we can remove that before then, we will. It really, again, depends on the progress we make. Again, we're making a lot of progress in every aspect. Our grid is coming back up, our power grid, but to give you an example, I still don't have power at my office. We're still working off generator power. So although we have a lot of power back in a lot of areas, and it's really, really in a much better place, there are still pockets that don't. So we're going to concentrate heavily, law enforcement-wise, in those areas that don't have any electricity. We still have a pretty substantial amount of law enforcement in our area, so we're going to continue to concentrate, especially in those areas that still have pockets of no power. But we're going to continue to monitor that. But I think this is going to help people, help our businesses. It'll help us, to move around a little more freely in our parish as we continue this recovery. I'm going to ask for domestic violence, a home invasion, and 2 second-degree batteries. So you can see the numbers are not extravagant. That's for the whole weekend from Friday to today. So any of those are a problem. I wish we didn't have any criminal activity, but at least it seems to be basically like a normal day or a normal weekend in Calcasieu Parish. So again, I wish we didn't have any crime. If we could get people to act right and do the right thing, we would not have any problems. You could do away with me and my job, but it doesn't appear that we're going to have that. But our call volume is still really less than a normal day. So again, from a crime standpoint, talking with all the chiefs, and again, we meet every day, we talk, and we have a Zoom meeting, and things are progressing very nicely, and we feel like crime is very much under control. So we're very pleased with that, and everybody's still working very hard. And I know we've seen a lot of progress from all of our entities, mayors and other public facilities, getting the streets back to normal in a orderly fashion. So we're very pleased with that. So that concludes my report. Teresa, unless you have any questions, thank you.
Thank you, Tony. We'll hear now from Alan Wainwright, our Public Works Director for Calcasieu Parish, on the debris removal effort.
Thank you, Brian. I'm going to focus on two things today, the debris. First, I'm going to give you some parish-wide numbers. So this municipalities included. I see the cities here. They may want to speak specifics to theirs, but it's really been quite the effort. To date, we're a little bit, probably over 2 million cubic yards of debris have been picked up parish-wide. That's roughly about 1.7 in vegetation and about 300,000 in C and D debris. That's in roughly 18 days of pickup. So it's an outstanding rate, a little over 100,000 cubic yards per day. These guys that are in here doing this, they really know how to do it. They use consolidation teams in front of the actual trucks, so it makes it real efficient. There's a few hiccups along the way. We work those out, but overall, I think they're doing a great job. But with those numbers, and if we've done 2 million to date, and you've been around the city, you realize or the parish, you realize we have a lot left to do. So the first pass is not near complete. We probably have at least a couple weeks at the parish level, unincorporated area, and I suspect the city are in about the same shape. Maybe the smaller ones are getting closer to a complete first pass, but at the parish unincorporated, we at least have a couple more weeks in the first pass. Would encourage everyone to continue sorting your piles, continue consolidating them where you can. If we've made that first pass, please be aware that we'd love to keep the ditches clean, and with all this rain predicted, that would be the best thing we could do is consolidate our piles and keep it out of the ditches, especially for the second and third passes. Keep it off of inlets, drain inlets, those things that let the water get into the system and flow. So with that, I know another major concern out there has been our gravity drainage district. our gravity flow system, those main laterals that take the water from our streets and our yard ditches out to the bayous, out to the lake, on downstream. So those were severely hit as well. We probably have more miles of that than we do roads. We contacted all the gravity drainage districts today, and we've been in constant contact, but I wanted to get a good update from them. Really, they're out there working as hard as they can. They're making progress. The maps that I'm looking at, they are able to cut and stack debris on the banks of these laterals, just trying to clear the main path. So they're working very feverishly to do that, and I commend them. The other part of that equation is a bigger fix, moving all that debris out. So the parish with the two consolidated gravity drainage districts is joining into a program. We're working, basically putting together a program through the United States Department of Ag, down through the NRCS, which are the Emergency Watershed Protection Program. We're doing assessments on the entire system. We'll be pushing up the needed locations for debris removal, which will basically be the majority of the system, to NRCS in hopes of getting a substantial program put together to really put our lateral system back like it was before the storm. So that's going to take some time, that effort, but it is coming. So the districts are doing their part in the immediate aftermath, doing what they can, and then the bigger program is coming. Just to wrap up, the trash routes, best I can tell, are working pretty good. We have a few things to iron out, but for the most part, all the routes now are open and should be working. I'd encourage those, if you're still having some sort of problem, to contact our office, 721-3700. We'll be glad to try and work that out. And then last but not least, just like to remind everyone that in this scenario, you've seen the weather briefing, we do have 3 sandbagging locations up and running in case there becomes a need for that. The locations are Lake Charles, South Lake Charles at the Power Center, the Recreation District, the location in Moss Bluff at the Baseball Field Recreation District, and then a location in Sulphur near the intersection of Ruth and Cypress Street. So we've put out the exact locations on that, and you can look it up and get to those if you need them. The operational hours for those are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And so far, we've got plenty of supplies if someone decides they need that. With that, I'll take any questions.
I know the rain is taking care of this problem right now, but we are getting complaints from one neighborhood, I would say in the vicinity of the old Moss Regional Hospital, where apparently a lot of sawdust is getting on everything and people are breathing it. I don't know if that's the only location where that's a problem. Just wanted, I promised them I'd see if you could update that situation.
Yes, ma'am, that is being looked into. That is a temporary debris management site. That is being looked into and trying to address the issues there with the residents that live nearby. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alan. I want to mention that since the first day of this response, the Louisiana National Guard has been here, and their services have been invaluable. And they've done so many different things, and we appreciate them being here, and we were lucky enough to have Colonel Riley today with the Guard. We'd ask him to come up and give an update on some of their efforts, which have transitioned based on the need. And of course, they get pulled away to other storms as well, so we appreciate all your service.
All right, good evening. I'm going to slow it down a little bit. I was kind of fast last time in regards to the numbers. So currently we still have the 10 pod sites throughout Calcasieu Parish open. And what we've done this week is basically a weekend average of each site of what we've given away. So I kind of go through those first, and I'll talk about some pre-storm things that we're doing in support when we are needed or called. So first of all, I have the Vinton School, MREs, 3,650, ice, 558 bags, water, 12,200, tarps, 217. McMurray Park, which is in Sulphur, 2,048, MREs, 344 bags of ice, 2,880 bottles of water, 0 tarps. Moss, which is Gillis, Topsy Road, 1,521 MREs, 2,020 bags of ice, 1,419 bottles of water, 0 tarps. DeQuincy, 577 MREs, 395 bags of ice, 395 bottles of water, 0 tarps. Lake Charles Civic Center, 7,214 MREs, 1,810 bags of ice, 11,608 bottles of water. Washington Marion High School, 625 MREs, 563 bags of ice, 1,104 bottles of water, 60 tarps. Westwood Elementary, 823 MREs, 378 bags of ice, 1,179 bottles of water, 124 tarps. Memorial Park Plaza, 1,179 MREs, 710 bags of ice, 5,830 bottles of water, 0 tarps. The Iowa site, 844 MREs, 661 bags of ice, 3,590 bottles of water, 0 tarps. And then the final one, the Grace Harbor site, 342 MREs, 2,089 bags of ice, 1,180 bottles of water, and 39 tarps. So that kind of concludes what we're doing at the pod sites. As you can tell by the numbers, that's still a need. And like you said before, the guard is going to be here till there's no longer a need. Looking at what we're doing in current response to Tropical Storm Beta, praying that we don't need it, but we are ready to respond. We're staging high water vehicles and boat teams throughout Calcasieu Parish in regards to what the EOC requests. We're getting ready with engineer work teams and engineer assessment teams in case we have to clear debris and anything of that nature and make assessments. So we are prepared. We're here to support this community. We always go by the motto, protect what matters, and this parish matters. Thank you. Any questions?
We appreciate Colonel Riley being here today. Let's move to utilities. I'll start with Entergy. If you go, their website's very helpful, and we continue to speak with Margaret Harris with Entergy. They are down to less than 4,000 customers. Oh, I'm sorry, Margaret. I didn't see you here. Why don't I let you speak for Entergy? Come on up. Sorry.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, audience. I'm proud to say that we've made a lot of progress over the last few days, restoring additional customers, bringing hope, more hope to our community. So at this point, we have power available to about 95% of the customers that we serve in Cameron and Calcasieu parishes. Do keep in mind that we did open the banks to three-phase customers. So our three-phase customers do need to reach out to us so that we can coordinate with you to return service. We've already made some progress on that. Many of them opted to put in generators, so we need to work closely together. This weekend, we also Sunday restored power to our downtown network. We have an underground network downtown. We inspected it very carefully and worked carefully with customers who were ready to come off generator to do so. We do have some buildings, of course, in our community and homes that have significant damage that cannot be restored at present. And we do wish all of those the best in their recovery as they continue to take a look at those damages and look for ways to rebuild or restore their properties. We have had a few challenging areas where, as a result of our extensive transmission damage, we had to come up with some other solutions to get power into those pockets more quickly off of our distribution system. So I got word shortly before coming to the meeting today that we were able to energize a couple of areas that we've been without power for quite some time. So Moss Bluff, we just restored the substation that serves that particular area. We serve predominantly the east side of Moss Bluff with our neighboring utility on the most westerly side of that portion of the area. We also still have a few pockets left to go. We ask for your patience. We do have a couple of locations where we've provided alternative solutions that down the road we may have to take a planned outage to get it back to its normal. We would do our best to make an outbound type of call to those customers or text message. So I want to encourage you to go to our app or go to our website and be sure that you have updated the form of communication you'd like from us. That may have changed for you with some of the challenges that we've had around communication. You may have changed your cell phone, so you may not be receiving notices from us. We would like to encourage you to do so. One other item I'd like to mention to you is we did set up a temporary phone number for customers who have damages, who need to restore their own property, as well as these three-phase customers that need to work closely with us with their electricians. I want to encourage you to call a temporary new number of 866-557-4240. And of course, you can also opt to choose 1-800-ENERGY. We do have, like was mentioned, a lot of good tools on our website. We did also stand up 2 customer information centers. First, we had one at 2150 Opelousas Street. This is a location where you can walk up and speak to Entergy representatives. We are very conscious of the COVID-19 requirements of social distancing, so they are outside with a little area to speak to someone. Maybe not ideal with the weather we have now, but still an opportunity. We did add a location at 1833 Gershner Memorial today. We will have those centers open for several days just to give people another avenue for communication. It's been a great opportunity for us to serve the customers in that way. For those who've had heavy damages, some of them have come by just to understand better what they own in terms of the meter base and where the division of ownership is, so they can be working on their portions of the repair while we work to restore power on our grid. Any questions for me at this time?
A few people have said that they're having intermittent power outages. Could you explain why that would be, and what, if anything, people should do with regard to that?
Sure. We have had some power outages as a result of the gusting winds. If we have a weak spot on our system or maybe a connection that wasn't as good as it could have been, that will be exposed in those gusting type of winds. So we did have a few what I call circuit operations, especially yesterday. You should call into Entergy. If that doesn't come back quickly, you need to report that to us. We may already know. You can look at the view outage map, and if you see something widespread in your neighborhood, it's been reported, or we're aware of it. If not, call us or let us know via text.
Also, I just wanted to ask, Suddenlink has said a number of times in public that they have kind of worked behind your power workers. And I just wanted to know if you could comment on whether or not that is the way that they need to do it to restore the service they provide.
I'm really not going to address what Suddenlink has going on their system. I do know that we're trying to work together, and we have been in some meetings with them to work together. I would also like to mention there have been some questions around bills, and so understand that you don't pay in advance for electricity. So basically, if you've been without power, your meter has not been moving forward. So someone said, are you suspending bills? We are not suspending that you would receive a bill from us, because you could receive a bill at this time that could have some usage prior to August the 26th. However, we are going to estimate zero usage from August 26th until the time that we resume reading meters. So I just wanted to provide a point of clarification on that. Any questions around that? Again, I want to thank you. We have power available to many customers. If there's been power restored in your area and you are without without power, we want you to call 1-800-ENERGY and let us know. Typically, after we restore the feeders out of a substation like we just did in the Moss Bluff area, then it's about a day or two that we're working through that area for any additional people to take service. But I want to encourage you to call 1-800-ENERGY. A lot of people are texting people who work for Entergy, giving them a call. Just go ahead and call our call center, and then I gave you a special number that was stood up for customers related to Hurricane Laura right here in these two parishes. So on behalf of all of us at Entergy and all of the contractors that have worked with us to do this restoration and this rebuild in this community, we're continuing to work on it. There's more transmission work to be done, and we're still turning people's power on, and happy to report that we've made a significant amount of progress.
We appreciate that, Margaret. And Beauregard Electric has a statement. They have about 12,400 customers in Calcasieu Parish. About 7,800 of those have had power restored, so that's about 63%. So they've made a lot of progress, too, in the last couple of days, and I know that continues. Next, we do have, who can answer your question, I think, Teresa, Robbie Lee with Suddenlink Communications is here, and he's going to give an update on their services.
Good afternoon. My name is Robbie Lee, and I'm the Regional Vice President for Altice's Mid-South region, which includes Suddenlink operations in Louisiana. As I discussed during last week's conference, our Suddenlink infrastructure in Lake Charles experienced significant damage during Hurricane Laura, requiring much of our system to be rebuilt. On behalf of the company, I want to thank our employees and contractors who have worked tirelessly to identify and begin repairs to nearly 4,700 miles of fiber optic and coaxial cable plant in the state. Today, I plan to share with you updates on our restoration efforts, which have been underway in Lake Charles since the moment we were granted access into the area. As far as our restoration efforts, since I was here last Wednesday, we've brought approximately 2,700 additional customers back online. In total, we have restored nearly 7,000 customers in Lake Charles, or around 17% of the customers in Lake Charles, and more than 80,000 customers across Louisiana. Based on our restoration efforts to date, I can report that our master head ends are fully functioning thanks to backup power and generators. As is typically the case, our broader recovery efforts are directly linked to the restoration activity and timeline of other utilities, since our services, both in home and in the network's facility level, are dependent on power. As such, much of our network cannot begin until poles and lines are repaired. Now that power companies are repairing poles and power is being restored at a faster rate, we can quickly turn to safe activation and rebuilding. Restoration is an iterative process, and due to the interdependencies, customer may experience lag time between when power is restored and when Suddenlink services are restored. Additionally, we have surveyed our footprint, and as I shared last week, large portions of our network have been completely destroyed. In many cases, we need to entirely reconstruct our infrastructure at a tremendous cost. So by the end of September, we will have already spent over $50 million in order to bring services back online. With that said, we are very engaged with the local power companies, and even where storm damage is addressed through temporary repairs, we continue working closely with the utilities to make permanent repairs to our network. While we have a tremendous amount of work to do, we continue to make progress every day thanks to our teams on the ground who are coordinating with utilities on an ongoing basis, and we will not stop until everyone's services are restored. We're listening to the community. On Friday afternoon, I participated in a hearing before the Commerce Committee of the Louisiana State Senate. I want you to know that all of us at Suddenlink heard the frustration and feedback. We are fully dedicated to restoring service as quickly as possible and keeping an open line of communication with our customers. To that end, let me address some of the feedback we received from the community. Number one, we are providing proactive customer credits. We understand the impact of this terrible storm on our customers and particularly communities such as the Lake Charles area, DeRidder, Leesville, Pineville, and Alexandria. In these communities that have experienced prolonged outages due to extensive damage on our network, we will provide full service credits going back to August 27th. The credit will automatically be applied to customer accounts within 2 billing periods, and customers do not need to take any action to receive it. We have also suspended late fees and collection activities as well. Number two, we are bringing in more resources. We have over 1,000 employees on the ground working around the clock to restore service throughout Louisiana. As restoration is completed, we have been bringing additional crews to Lake Charles to aid in our efforts here. By tomorrow, we expect more than 500 additional resources in Lake Charles. I recognize that some are contractors, so may not be in Suddenlink branded trucks or uniforms, but our presence is strong and will remain strong until we get everyone back online. Number three, we are deploying more Wi-Fi trailers in the community. We know how critical internet connectivity is to our customers in Lake Charles. So as restoration efforts continue, we have free Wi-Fi hotspot located at 1538 East Preon Lake Road, and by midweek we plan to have an additional facility in Lake Charles and one in Sulphur. The Wi-Fi is open to anyone in the community. You don't need to be a customer to access it, so we encourage anyone who needs access to visit our location. Number four, we will continue to proactively communicate with our customers. Last week, we sent an email to all our Lake Charles customers about the service credits. We will continue to update the community and customers via email, SMS, and on social media, as well as on our customer-facing website at suddenlink.com/storm. In addition, we regularly coordinate our restoration efforts directly with state and local OEMs, Office of Emergency Services, and directly coordinate with our utility partners, and we will continue to do so. Number five, we continue to prioritize service and restoration to critical infrastructure, which includes the schools we serve here in Lake Charles. We are engaged with the superintendent in order to expedite restoration to the schools, and we will have more to share in the coming days as these efforts continue. So before I conclude, I want to acknowledge that Tropical Storm Beta is on our radar. While bad weather of any kind can affect restoration efforts, we are tracking the storm closely and preparing for it. We have also proactively engaged the relevant OEMs and utility power companies to ensure coordination. And in conclusion, I want to reiterate that we are absolutely focused on restoring service as quickly and safely as possible to our customers. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
What will happen to customers who had some of your equipment in their residence and it was destroyed by the hurricane? Will they have to pay for it, or is that something that your insurance covers, or how will that work for the consumer?
Ma'am, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll be glad to get it and get back to you.
Also, I was told that your CEO may be visiting this week, and I just wanted to check on whether or not he is, and whether we might be able to hear him speak somewhere or something like that.
I do not know the details of his plans, for his visit. I know that Senator Johns announced that he would be making, at the hearing he announced he would be making a visit this week. I've spoken with the president and COO who will be accompanying him, and he indicated that they would be here this week, but I just don't have the details of when. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Robbie. It's encouraging to hear some of the response on the billing and services and more workers coming down. Thank you. We'll go to individual assistance updates now, and from FEMA, we have Jerry Stoller.
Thank you, Administrator Beam. Good afternoon. I just want to begin by saying that, you've heard a lot about Tropical Storm Beta at the beginning of this meeting. And I've been working very closely with Dick Vermillion and his staff, and I want to assure you they've been thinking about this storm since last Friday. It's when they actually started planning for it. So I would again, just encourage all of you to heed the warnings of the local officials. They are taking this storm seriously, even though the forecast now is much more favorable than what it looked like perhaps 24 hours ago. It does still pose a serious threat. And speaking of that threat, I'm sure all of you have noticed that some of the services that FEMA has been providing to survivors has had to be suspended because of the threat of Tropical Storm Beta. We've had to suspend operations at our drive-through disaster recovery centers here in Lake Charles and in the city of Sulphur. We had to do so yesterday and again today. We are taking a close look at the updated forecast that you all saw just a short while ago. And I'll be keeping Dick, the parish police jury, and the mayors here in Calcasieu Parish apprised as to when we'll be able to safely resume those services. I do want to update you on some of the numbers since our last report, which is last Friday. There were over 1,600 new households that registered for FEMA assistance. That brings the parish total now to over 83,300 households, and that's more than 90% of all households in Calcasieu Parish that have registered for federal assistance. And the amount of housing assistance that has been approved for households in the parish has topped $92 million. Dick mentioned earlier the importance of registering, and again, there's still time to do so. Again, 1-800-621-FEMA. That's 1-800-621-3362. That's one of the more common ways to register. You can also do so online at disasterassistance.gov. Or you can download the FEMA app, which is also a common and useful way to register for federal assistance. Earlier today, we provided the parish with a 2-page fact sheet on other forms of assistance that are available. It's my understanding that this fact sheet will be posted on the parish website. And this has a lot of information about, again, other assistance programs, federal assistance programs that are available. Just a couple of those that I'd like to highlight this afternoon. Again, many of you are aware of the Blue Roof program that is very active here in Calcasieu Parish. The deadline, by the way, to register for this program has been extended now to September 30th. And individuals or households that are interested in registering for this service, which is free of charge, can do so online at usace.army.mil/Blue Roof. That's USACE, that's spelled USACE.army.mil. That's MIL/Blue Roof. It's all one word. Or households can call 888-ROOF-BLUE, and that's 888 766-3258. That's again for the Blue Roof program. And there are well over, from what I understand, for Calcasieu Parish, over 5,000 approved rights of entry, and well over 1,000 blue roofs have already been installed to those households. And we have there are over 700 personnel in support of that U.S. Army Corps of Engineer managed program working throughout Calcasieu Parish. But again, a lot of information on the Blue Roof program and other assistance programs can be found on the parish website, citing the FEMA fact sheet that I just mentioned. I also want to talk just a little bit about receipts and other documentation that some of you who have registered for FEMA assistance may be trying to get entered into your case file. And again, as the numbers indicated, our drive-through recovery centers, many of you have been trying to use that option, visiting our drive-through recovery centers to submit this documentation. And we've seen several hundred, those of you who have registered over the last several days. But there's another option that may work for you and may enable you not to have to get in line once our drive-through recovery centers open. And that is by downloading and using the FEMA app. Now, I realize that, your Wi-Fi connection, internet service may be very unreliable at this time, but if you can get somewhere where you do have good Wi-Fi or internet connection, you can use that FEMA app to upload your documentation. All you need to do is take a picture of whatever that receipt is, whatever that document is, and then submit it using the FEMA app. The only other special instruction that I want to remind everyone of is that they should include, or they really need to include, their FEMA registration number, that unique FEMA registration number that everyone who registered with FEMA received at the time of registration, and the disaster number. The disaster number for this incident is DR-4559-LA. Again, the disaster number for this incident is DR-4559-LA. And again, I want to remind everyone that the assistance that they receive from FEMA to repair their home is it's a grant. This is not a loan. This does not have to be paid back to FEMA. It is not taxable, but it must be used. This money that you receive from FEMA must be used for disaster-related costs and repairs to your home. And everyone that receives a letter from FEMA, within that letter, there are specific instructions on the types of things that this FEMA grant can be used for, and more importantly, what it should not be used for. And I would also encourage everyone who has received assistance to retain whatever receipts you've accumulated, the services you've used to that money for. You should keep those receipts for at least 3 years, because it is subject to an audit. But again, it's a grant. It's not taxable and does not need to be repaid to the federal government. Now, with regards to a question that came up earlier about mitigation on private homes, Administrator Beam mentioned the HMGP grant money that communities can apply for. This is a common use for that type of money, and the amount of money that the state is going to receive in terms of mitigation dollars, that's going to be a percentage of what the total cost of this disaster ends up being. And the priorities for how that mitigation money is used is set by the state and local jurisdictions. And as Administrator Beam mentioned, oftentimes that mitigation money does go towards infrastructure projects, but given the scale and scope of this event. And I think clearly the need for some longer-term, permanent, affordable housing. I'm sure that's going to be something that not only the parish, but a lot of the smaller communities, the cities are going to be taking a long look at. And so I think there'll be certainly opportunities for homeowners to have an opportunity to talk about the types of things that they would like to see some of that mitigation money used for as we get further into recovery. And then the final topic I just want to touch on, the issue of housing, I know is front and center on everyone's mind. I've had been a part of many discussions with the parish administrator, the police jury, Dick Ramillion, Mayor Hunter, and other mayors here in Calcasieu Parish. And on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, we plan to say a little bit more about how this temporary housing plan is going to be rolled out. Just want to remind everyone that this temporary housing, the options that are going to be used here in Calcasieu Parish, this is all going to be done in very close coordination with the state of Louisiana and with the police jury here of Calcasieu Parish, and with officials from the local jurisdictions, the affected jurisdictions. So I certainly look forward to the opportunity on Wednesday to talk a little bit about what the federal government is going to bring to the table in collaboration and in very close coordination with the state and the local jurisdictions. But it is it's going to be a long process, but it's a process that I am sure that we're going to be able to begin in the very near future, but it will take a while, given the number of homes, the number of households that have been displaced, to address the needs of each and every household, because every household is going to have their own journey when it comes to longer-term temporary housing, and then more importantly, the permanent housing piece of that. So again, I certainly look forward to sharing more details later this week on longer-term temporary housing. And with that, that concludes my remarks, subject to any questions.
I just wanted to ask about the mitigation. It seems to me that some of the flood mitigation projects in the past, somebody might apply for 5 years before they get it. I just wondered if there would be any expedited mitigation, since, I presume most people will try to rebuild their houses or repair their houses within the next year or two. So 5 years from now, they'd have to, I guess, take the house apart to, install storm straps or whatever the various devices are called that would help a house withstand the higher winds.
Right. So I think, again, if there is some grant money that comes available in the near future, that would be one option. Second would be to discuss if the affected household, if they do have homeowners insurance, there may be some opportunities there. The only thing and just in terms of managing expectations, the assistance that FEMA is providing right now really is not going to be designed to address those mitigation issues. All the money that FEMA is giving right now is to make the home safe and sanitary. It's really not designed to address any mitigation concerns. But what I will do, since it certainly is a topic of interest, is I will get some additional information to the parish that we can post on the parish website, and perhaps I can speak about during future events like this about what they might be able to look at in terms of taking advantage of grants to withstand like wind damage, right? Because the flood insurance program really is designed to elevate homes and to reduce the threat of flood risks, which we didn't necessarily have on this event. But I will provide the parish with additional information on some options for homeowners. Okay. All right.
Appreciate Jerry being here. He's been great. He's been here the whole time. The one thing he's struggling with is the French names sometimes. It's Grimion. But hey, another week and we got you. From Red Cross, Ed Bush.
Cool. A nice, easy name, right? Good afternoon, everyone. Ed Bush, Red Cross, as always. My pleasure to be here tonight, and certainly Red Cross's pleasure to be part of this monumental recovery effort. Our priorities remain the same: sheltering, distribution of food, individual assistance, and communication of needs, and I'll touch on each of those. So sheltering, we continue to work in support of DCFS. Red Cross is currently managing 42 non-congregate shelters or hotels for a total of 4,800 rooms and approximately 11,300 clients. And these numbers are trending down. That's a good thing. That shows progress. We remain in support of the Texas-Louisiana state-to-state coordinated effort for the shelter consolidation and the transfer of Louisiana clients. We continue to work very closely with the state EOC and DCFS in that same line of effort to reduce shelter populations in conjunction with reopened communities and livable homes. A little bit on food. Statewide today, we had 18 feeding sites in 12 cities spread over 3 parishes. Here in Calcasieu, we're still maintaining 9 locations, and I'll list those now. The drive-through site at 276 Old Highway 171, Huber Park at 2401 4th Avenue, Sam's Club at 2025 Sam's Way, the Dollar General Strip Mall at 935 3rd Avenue. I'm sorry, am I going too fast? I am so sorry. The second one, Huber Park at 2401 4th Avenue. I got to look on my left. I saw you struggling there to keep up. The Mount Olive Baptist Church at 3007 Enterprise Boulevard. Those are all Lake Charles. 2 in Sulphur. The First Baptist Church at 4501 Maplewood Drive. And McMurray Park at 300 South Hazel. We're still maintaining 1 site in Vinton at the Vinton Knights of Columbus. They're on Horde Street. And 1 site in DeQuincy at the Catholic Church there at 203 Grand Avenue. Now, one general comment on feeding statewide. Again, over time here, and certainly in the short term, we'll begin to see this number go down. And that's by intent. So as power is restored and cities and parishes are reopened, the Red Cross is supporting these efforts, and we'll stay close to those parish authorities and those parish officials to adjust our feeding requirements as they see fit to those parishes and those families being able to go back home. And again, this may be to either return to their homes or some other type of permanent or more livable housing for them in the short term. Quick note on damage assessment and individual assistance. So damage assessment is essentially functionally complete, except for a few remote locations. The numbers today here in Calcasieu, we're tracking 2,270 homes, residences destroyed, and 4,505 with major damages. And again, those numbers are significant, but because those are the 2 categories that can then qualify for the Red Cross individual assistance. So communicating needs. And I think this is the most important part of the whole brief here tonight. So the Red Cross will be in Louisiana for as long as it takes. We are working with your partners and beside the partners to help rebuild the communities and help people rebuild their lives. We all know every disaster is different, and the needs of this one are certainly different and unique. But again, it's working closely with our local partners that we're able to coordinate and get the assistance to where the families need. As power is restored and parishes open, DCFS and GOSEP working with the Red Cross to help those residents find their way home. So those Louisiana residents who need transportation assistance are asked to call the state reception number at 337-330-4636. And that's for those folks who need some help getting transportation back to their homes. The state will continue to coordinate this with the Red Cross and will continue to provide extended emergency housing assistance for those homes who have been verified to have been destroyed or major damaged. Their next step could take on a various options, and we work closely on them with the case-by-case basis to get that fit. So Louisiana residents who also have a continuing need for emergency feeding due to Hurricane Laura can register for the Disaster Supplemental Nutrition Assistance. That's DSNAP. That's a DCFS program, and that'll help meet those feeding needs. And they can do so by visiting www.dcfs.louisiana.gov. And again, 211 remains a very good source for additional information. So the point of all that, the point of that whole last paragraph is that's the way ahead. We continue to work together to identify needs, bring those needs to the forefront as a group, coordinate our efforts on those needs, and react appropriately. And that's the part that's going to get us through. So one note, I'm proud to report that we still have 600 Red Cross staff and volunteers from across the country working this recovery mission. And as always, we clearly could always use the help, and anyone interested in volunteering can do so by dialing 1-800-RED-CROSS or www.redcross.org. And with that, pending any questions, that's all I have for this evening.
We have had some complaints from people who I guess have signed up for DSNAP and have not yet received any assistance. Do you know anything about that?
I can't talk on DSNAP. That is a specific DCFS program, and I would just encourage them to reach out. They can get the number through their OEP or through 211 to get that good number where they can get those questions addressed. I sort of hesitated to even bring that up, but I just wanted people to know that there's layered help out there as far as feeding. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Okay, as we like to end these briefings, we hear from some of our elected officials. We'll first hear from Police Jury President Tony Gilry.
Thank you, Brian. I encourage everyone, again, to please mask up. We're encouraging everyone, again, to please mask up. I just want to say, as the sheriff said about the curfew, from 10 to 6 a.m., it's going to help a lot of business, a lot of grocery stores, and it's going to help a lot of people, give them time to work on their homes. We're expecting rain in the next few days, and please be careful of all streets. Streets could possibly flood. Debris could get in the streets. Again, please be careful. Calcasieu, we will rebuild back. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Tony. We'll hear next from Mayor Nick Hunter of Lake Charles.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening, everyone. Well, you know, it's been almost a month now, and I think it's very appropriate that we acknowledge in Lake Charles right now, there's a lot of people who are still going through a lot of pain and a lot of struggle from Hurricane Laura. It's a very real thing for a lot of people who are living this day in and day out. At the same time that we mention that, it's also appropriate that we just take a step back and look at the progress that has happened in close to a month's time. I don't know if I've ever really said this publicly, but a couple days after the storm, really 24 to 48 hours after the storm, as I exited my home and walked to downtown Lake Charles and saw the destruction around us, I literally thought it would be months. I thought it would be months until we would be here standing today talking about power restoration restored to a majority of our community. The early reports on our water plants and the water lines in Lake Charles, I thought it would be months until we would be able to say that we have water to households that are able to accept it. And certainly before we were talking about lifting a boil advisory. So I just think it's worth mentioning that there's a lot of varied emotions right now throughout our community, and that is absolutely understandable because a lot of people are very frustrated and very emotional about what's going on right now, and those are very natural things. But it's okay for us to acknowledge that there's still a lot of struggle with a lot of individuals and also acknowledge the progress that we have made. And ladies and gentlemen, let's remember, we are talking about the 5th strongest hurricane to hit the United States of America in modern history. And look where we are today. We have a long road ahead of us. The recovery will be a long road, weeks and months, truly. But look where we are today versus where we were 24, 48 hours out from the 5th strongest hurricane to hit the United States of America in modern history. City Hall was open today, and we're encouraging people again, if you do have business at City Hall, please try and call ahead of time. Appointments are certainly welcome. But just as a reminder, our transit system, civic center, rec centers, and Mallard Cove Golf Course remain closed at this time. We have done a lot of prep work for Tropical Storm Beta. We're doing as much as humanly possible. I use the phrase humanly possible a lot recently because I truly believe that's what's going on. I have used that in reference to Entergy. I've used it in reference to the actions of city employees. And with the amount of debris that was produced from Hurricane Laura, it is not humanly possible for us to think that all of that could be cleaned up before Tropical Storm Beta approaches us. But I can promise you that crews are working right now cleaning drainage catch basins, and even Crowder Gulf, our contractor, is going to continue to pick up debris until whatever point they say is not safe for their employees. But they will continue to work every hour that they can until there may unfortunately need to be a pause because of inclement weather. I want to confirm that we do have 4 dump sites for the city of Lake Charles. These are temporary dump sites to collect debris that has piled up because of Hurricane Laura. 4 dump sites throughout the city of Lake Charles in different geographic areas of the city. I want to stress again that these are temporary, and we know that they are unsightly, but the debris collected is from those neighborhoods, and we are trying to get this debris out of our community as quickly as possible. And so these sites and the fact that there is 4 of them allow our contractor to move quicker. So that is something that's very helpful. I want to encourage everyone to continue to register with FEMA. Those are some very spot-on comments, and I was even visiting with someone on the state level, and they were talking about some of the funding that could generate, of course it all depends on Congress, but could generate from CDBG moving forward for our communities. And a lot of that will be dependent on how many people registered with FEMA. And so I'm encouraging you, even if you don't think you're going to get a dime from FEMA, go ahead and register. Register because it will help the community in the long run. And I will close on just a couple last items and then open it up for any questions. I'm going to try and save the best news for last, but I am happy that Jerry Stoller mentioned housing. And let me tell you, if I need to speak with someone from FEMA, I can get them immediately. If I have a question or a concern, I can speak with them immediately. Mr. Stoller on a local level, Tony Robinson on a regional level have been very communicative with the city of Lake Charles. And if I call with a concern, it's normally addressed. Locals have been very vocal with FEMA about the need for a well thought out and concise and clearly articulated housing plan for our population here. There's a lot of people who do not have a home to come home to in Lake Charles and the surrounding areas. That is a very real reality for a lot of people. We understand that this housing plan will not be able to be implemented tomorrow, but we are at that point where conversation, discussion needs to evolve to the advertisement of this plan publicly to the public. And I'm very happy that Jerry has stated that on Wednesday that clarity should be provided, or at least more clarity for what that plan is and will be for our public. Because again, people deserve that at this point. There's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of fear about what's the next step, and many people are waiting on this information. It is my opinion that whatever plan is put forth, it should be one with options. It should not be a one-size-fits-all plan. Most importantly, it must be something that people can use and have some pride in. You know, we want our citizens to come home at the appropriate time when they can, to be here in Lake Charles, to be here in the lake area, because our citizens, our people, are what make us great. But we want them to be able to come home and live somewhere that they can have some pride in, even if it's temporarily, until more permanent housing can be achieved. We continue to receive reports or inquiries about individuals living in tents. All I can tell you is we have made multiple visits to sites where people are claiming that there are individuals living in tents. I personally went around yesterday on the Civic Center grounds and along the entire lakefront of the city of Lake Charles. I encountered no one that was living in a tent. But I will say again that if that occurs, there are still options to this very day, as I am speaking at this minute. If someone is a LoRa evacuee and they don't have shelter, we can transport them to shelter. We can work with the state to get someone shelter. Our city staff, I believe it was about a week and a half ago, did encounter some people at the lakefront living in tents. There may be exceptions to this rule, but every one of those individuals that they encountered had traveled here after the hurricane to do post-storm construction work. And I'll be very specific. In fact, they encountered one woman who had a 2-month-old baby with her. And they asked her if she needed anything, and her comments to them directly were, "No, we're here doing work." So we gave them resources. We showed them what we can do for them if they need shelter. But I just want to stress to the public that we take those things seriously. If there are individuals that are LoRa evacuees having to live in those conditions, that's something I have a problem with. And we take those reports very seriously. I said I'd leave the best for last. As of noon today, the city of Lake Charles was able to lift our water boil advisory. And again, that is something that I did not expect to happen. If you had told me a couple days after the storm that we would be where we are today, I would not have believed you. I have got to give credit. All of the credit goes to our city employees, specifically our Public Works Department, our Utilities Division, Kevin Heisey, Charles Guillory, the Water Superintendent, and their team have worked their tails off, and they have performed almost inhuman, superhuman feats, I should say, to achieve what we have done with our water system. So I'm very proud of that, and it is a very cathartic thing to say that the boil advisory has been lifted for the city of Lake Charles, and that, of course, is the largest water provider for Calcasieu Parish. So we've mentioned daily victories, small victories. Today, I think that was a pretty big victory, and that is a very, very exciting thing to report to the public. So that's the end of my report, unless there are any questions.
I just wanted to ask if you have anything to say to people who are just basically saying, I can't deal with this, and they're moving away. I know a couple that said, we're out of here, we're going back to Arkansas. Another couple gone, and I guess they're primarily people who do not own homes here, because obviously if you own a home or a business, it's not that simple to just say, I'm out of here. But what would you say to those who just feel like, I can't deal with this, I'm out of here?
Are you finished with your question? Okay. It hurts my heart to hear that. It really does, because I truly do believe the diversity in culture here is what makes us great, and that includes people from Arkansas or people from anywhere that have moved to Lake Charles in recent history. Prior to COVID-19 and Hurricane Laura, Lake Charles was one of the hottest economies in the country, and so we were attracting a lot of people from around the country. We'll be back to those good days again. And so I believe that's going to happen sooner rather than later. But I can tell you, and I will tell the public, that locals will leave no stone unturned. We will continue to claw and fight for every resource we can get so that people do feel comfortable coming home, because we want you to come home. The door is absolutely open, and the welcome mat is out as far as local officials are concerned. So everyone has to make up their own minds, and I respect that. But it does hurt my heart to hear that. But again, locally, local leadership, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that people do have an option to come back to this community, because that's what makes it great, is our diversity. And I truly do mean that, especially with a lot of the economic growth we've had over the last decade. We've had a lot of new people move into Lake Charles, and I think that's a wonderful thing. I absolutely think it's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. That concludes our briefing for today, unless there are any general questions. Okay. Our next briefing will be Wednesday, September 23rd, 4 p.m. Thank you.